All right. Hello and welcome to the Conspire Away Bitches podcast, Monty. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on this show. And it's also a pleasure to just be talking to a legend. I remember watching season 21 and having you go through that season. I didn't watch the full season. I didn't have enough time, but
it wasn't a good season. Don't worry.
It was a good season. Okay, well then I won't finish it then.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like you're buttering me up for the podcast, but I appreciate it. I am a sucker for being buttered up, so I'll go easy on you.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to tell you. So while you were on the live feeds before the show wrapped, you were talking to Turner and saying that you didn't want to be bothered with the post-game press.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
So I kind of started a rumor that you canceled my podcast because I was just like being really dramatic, and I was like, he doesn't want to be bothered, so I'm not going to have him.
Oh my God.
But here you are.
That is furthest from the truth. I think in the moment I was just talking about how like it's going to be so much to like take in, that like it's going to be hard for me to be a part of press and feel like I can just speak fluidly about things. But either way, it was all fun and games.
Well, I'm glad that we bothered you, and I'm glad that you're on. There was a lot of demand to have you on this podcast. So
oh really? A hopefully good demand. I don't know.
Well, it's hit and miss. I mean, I feel like you've probably figured out how the fans are by now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they do have a lot of questions for you though. Big Brother's unique in the way of like there's the show, but then there's the live feeds, and I feel like there's a lot of things that there's just a lot of questions. First of all, but before we get into that, what have you been up to since leaving the Big Brother house?
Well, I mean, it's been a whirlwind. So as you can imagine, as you've experienced, like just been trying to figure out what normalcy is, what I've missed out over the past 3 to 4 months. But I got the chance to see my parents right after the finale, which was awesome. I've been FaceTiming and calling a bunch of family members in between, but then also doing a lot of PR stuff, taking advantage of different opportunities that have been coming up here in LA, doing photo shoots. this is weird,
Like celebrity.
I know it's weird. And like people like recognize me when I go outside and stuff. It is so strange, Kat, but that's what I've been up to, and also been hanging out here at Todrick's place. Thankfully he offered that for us. But yeah, this weekend I'll be heading back home, so I'll eventually get into my normal routine back on the East Coast sometime soon.
And you probably get to go see your goddaughter this weekend then.
Yes. Well, my goddaughter's in New York, so I do have to figure out the logistics behind all of that. But yes, I am excited to see her. She's walking now, apparently, which is crazy. So she's got these tiny little strong legs, and she's just wobbling all over the place. I've seen video of it. So and I've talked to her parents as well, just about how she's doing. So that's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, so talking to, I was saying how there's a lot of demand to have you on the podcast. So I want to kind of get into the nitty gritty of it. So you alluded a couple of times on the live feeds that you were holding back because you're on TV. Specifically, one instance was you, Jasmine, and Amir were in the storage closet, and y'all were talking about something, but eventually the conversation turned to how I guess like Jasmine thought that Taylor had a crush on you, and then you said something like, the only reason I'm not going to say what I'm really thinking is because I'm on TV, and y'all kind of laughed about it. And then there was another instance where it was after the whole headphone game, and you were talking to Taylor in the bathroom about, why you were hurt about that, and kind of how that made you feel. And you told her that you think you would have naturally responded in a much harsher way in the moment if you weren't on TV. So before I ask anything else, because we are not going to leave this podcast without getting the answer to this, what did you mean by that? And how would you have responded if you weren't on TV?
Yeah. I mean, so the first instance, that was a while ago. If Amira was still in the house, I don't really remember what the context of all of that was, nor what I was thinking. But more recently around that conversation with Taylor, I'll be honest with you, I think I was just hurt, and I think I was emotional in that moment. And I've come to the realization that I think I just wanted her to feel as hurt as I was in that moment. And that's a very immature response. That's not something that I feel like is a healthy thing to do. But that's what I said in order to make her feel that way. I don't have any idea what I would have said or done differently outside of the house versus inside, because I felt like in that moment, I was truly trying to come to her as a friend and as a person who cared about her, letting her know how I felt about, some of the things that she said to me, and also what she may not know is impacting other people by virtue of her saying certain things. So that was my intention. If I didn't care about her, I would have never mentioned anything to her. I would have been distant. I would have just moved on and act like nothing happened. But that wasn't my response. It was truly out of care. So yeah, I can't tell you exactly what I was thinking at that moment, because again, I was emotional and definitely I hope I have the right to feel emotional. But that was the case. And I don't think that there was anything more that I was looking to do outside of the house.
So do you care about Taylor?
Of course. I mean, we spent so much damn time in that I care about everybody in the house, but yeah, especially Taylor, especially now that I've learned so much more about what has happened that I was not aware of. I mean, it is like a whole nother layer of the house that I just wasn't exposed to being inside of there. So I definitely feel for her a lot more just by virtue of what she's gone through. But also I just know that her as a person, the way that she's responded throughout the season has just been with a lot of strength and with like a lot of grace for the people who, she knows have wronged her. So yeah, I definitely care for Taylor. Like I definitely feel like, as a friend, I want nothing but the best for her and whatever the hell she does after this. And she's going to get into some good stuff.
Mm-hmm. So actually, I want to ask you first, because I think I know the answer to this, but just for fun. What was the biggest shock whenever you got out of the house? You talk about the disconnect between what you were thinking in the house and then what we saw. What specifically are you referring to with that?
I think for me, that first week.
Bingo. Yeah, that first week. Yeah. Sorry, I'm interrupting. But man,
No,
the disconnect between what y'all were thinking and what we were seeing was absolutely insane. Like, because y'all were obsessed with Paloma. You were obsessed with Paloma.
Oh no, I don't think.
Yes, I have a whole video on it.
It's a crazy word.
Well, so I don't know how much you've seen from that first week, but from what we saw, what?
I've seen nothing.
Oh, well, okay, perfect. So I have this video that I pulled up right here of you.
Was that about Paloma? Or was that?
Yeah, so that was just from our week with Paloma. So I had it ready because I was like, if he says that he doesn't remember, because I know how it is. Like, I mean, so much happened and you say so much. But I don't know if you realize the magnitude of that first week and like kind of the catalyst that it had on the whole season. Like you said that your biggest move in the game was evicting Turner to take Taylor to final two. Your biggest move in the game from my standpoint and people watching, was actually kind of the catalyst of like that ended up setting the mold for the entire game, was how you took what Paloma was saying about Taylor and justified it from your point of view and kind of gave everybody permission to treat her the way that they did. So it was kind of hard to see. And I just wasn't sure if you've realized, the magnitude that your words had on really setting the tone for the game. I guess looking back on that week, why did you feel like you had the I guess like the place of leadership to go around to all the house guests and justify their reasons for putting 2 Black people on the block that week and for ostracizing Taylor to the point where you didn't even want her to know why y'all were going to evict her week 1. You wanted to keep the whole goodbye message as a surprise. What was walk me through your thought process?
Yeah. No, I have no problem doing that, Kat. Like I remember exactly where I was in my mind frame at that point. And I'm just thinking about what actually transpired from day 1, from when we walked in to the point where Taylor had told me what she had told me around Paloma and, the suspicions there. I walked in with Paloma, Kyle, Jasmine. the four of us, but especially Kyle and Paloma, had talked a lot of game from that point moving forward, and not anything that I initiated. And, you know, you could fact check that too, but everything was presented to me from Paloma, from Kyle, around who we should work with and which alliances. And throughout that time, I felt like, okay, this is somebody who is actively making an effort to work with me in this game and form some sort of alliance to make it official. So throughout day one, before, you know, I had the conversation with Taylor around game, that was what was happening. And I'm just looking at it from a person, right? So Paloma's a person who is building a lot of trust with me, talking a lot of game, also is bringing me a lot of information about what she's hearing from other people. Now, she didn't tell me about girls at that time, right? Because I think that was probably her biggest priority, but nonetheless, bringing a lot of information to me at that time. Then I had that conversation with Taylor, and this was the first time that we had any sort of game talk, any sort of talk that was beyond just surface level stuff. And in that first conversation, she mentioned something about a person that I had established trust with. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, like, how am I to determine who's telling the truth or not? And in my mind, I determined it based off of the experiences I've had with a person versus not having that experience with Taylor at that point. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, who am I forced to believe? Naturally, I would try to believe the person who I've established trust with. Then on top of that, you know, when I bring it to that person being Paloma, she then goes, and I should have recognized this as a red flag, but then she then goes and shares it with the rest of the house. The rest of the house is on this narrative that Taylor has lied about Paloma, and then by virtue wanted to do that through me, which I just didn't feel like I wanted to be a part of in the first place, because I try not to be a drama-filled person. So I got very.
Well, we did not see that the first week.
I know.
All the drama all the time.
I know. But at the same time, Kat, give me some grace here. You've been in the house.
I get, yeah. And I get how it is. I said so much shit when on the live feeds, man. Whenever I got off the show, I realized I talk so much shit. And It is humbling to like be faced with it, you know. But it's the beauty of the live feeds. And, you know, when people have questions, they want answers.
100%, right? And I'm probably, you know, being newer to the whole live feed experience, I'm not realizing that there is someone clocking every minute that, you know, I'm in there and time stamping it. But at the same time that week, again, my emotions were more directed towards Taylor in the root of the thought that she lied to me to disrupt my game and was doing something vindictive without any sort of rhyme or reason. So I initially formed my opinion of her based off of that fact, and probably said some things that crossed the line or went too far that I didn't need to say. But in order to accomplish what I felt like needed to be accomplished, which is getting somebody out of the house that I thought was creating drama, I said things to other people, especially with Daniel, because he was worried about, you know, his perception of putting up two Black folks on the block. And in my head, I'm like, okay, it's not, to me, this is not about race. This is about people who are in the house causing drama, again, which is wrong, but at the time, that's what I thought. So that whole first week was a big blunder, obviously. And I came to realize that after weeks on end in the house, and then after talking to Taylor about what actually happened during the whole split house thing. So yeah, that was a lot, Kat. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I even looked back at it when I was talking to Taylor in the house, and I was like, yo, I feel like an idiot. Like, I even told her in the house, I was like, yo, my perception of you was so messed up based off of all of these lies that were told to me. And unfortunately, I believe those lies based off of experience with those people.
Yeah. You mentioned the conversation with Daniel. And it's funny because I actually have it right here. But I was like, just in case, you know, so whatever. The feed's cut a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody that I possibly can, especially the people of color, and especially Paloma. For Jasmine to say that she has felt like she's made comments about the weed, and the world that she has also deemed some sort. Oh man, let me cry myself to sleep because I can't live with that. No, she of all people would want to protect any other woman of color in here. Hell yeah, 100%. Being a, you know, good old girl.
So between, I guess, between that conversation, which I thought was just a small snippet of it, there was 2 conversations that I had, but I'm not going to play all of it because we only have 30 minutes and I don't want to like, I'll be like replay. And I don't even know if you can hear it very well, but it's on Twitter.
No, I'm just reading the captions, by the way.
Oh, cool. Well, so between like the conversations that you had with Daniel and between you telling Paloma that you wished that Taylor could have been a great example of a strong Black woman in the game. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of going around and justifying, as a Black man, mm-hmm. saying like, it's okay. And I feel like a lot of people, because the game is all that, you only know what you're seeing in the game. And I think that people took your permission to kind of run mm-hmm. with it. And mm-hmm. I don't know if you realize like the magnitude that had on the game and how it ended up shaking out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm realizing it now and have been realizing it over the past week and a half. But, I think it was all just rooted in the idea that there's a person in the house who lied to me. Like that was solely what I was thinking about, It
is a game of lies and manipulation, which is crazy. Because then I get mad at people for lying. I'm like, how dare they? And I'm like, oh,
right. But it's like you're in this house and you're supposed to survive every week, and you're supposed to make people feel like everybody's working with you, everybody's good with you. That forces you to lie, like because you can't be good with everybody. Somebody has to go home. You have to vote.
So you never once crossed your mind that maybe Paloma was lying?
At that moment, it just didn't feel that way. From the evidence that I had in front of me, it was hard for me to feel that way. The only thing that raised maybe a little bit of a yellow flag was how quickly word had spread after I told Paloma. And that was the only thing that I felt like, okay, like that I didn't expect that to happen. And then also when Taylor had been put up as a replacement nominee, Paloma immediately ran to her and had a conversation with her. And I was expecting the 3 of us to have a conversation because I just wanted to clear the air. I just wanted to be like, look, this is what you told me. And if there was anything that was misaligned here, like, let's just clear the air between the 3 of us. But Paloma took that action on herself. And that's when I started to realize like, okay, like that's weird, again, like still trying to understand what I could take for fact and what I should be looking into. But yeah, I'm sorry, Kat, I was dumb that first week. I wasn't a smart player. I didn't figure out like any signs that would lead me to believe that Paloma was lying, but that's the name of the game. Like I'm not perfect.
Yeah. Do you think that you ended up being a smart player as the game progressed?
I'd like to think so. I think throughout the time in the game, like I've been as cautious as possible to like make sure I'm not considered a threat. Even my relationship with Joseph throughout that time, like we even realized that we should probably tamper that down a little bit because people are just going to obviously think that we're aligned, put the 2 of us on the block, and then one of our behinds is out. And I think that was the case with a lot of people throughout the season. But yeah, I believe that I got smarter with time, just as far as how to navigate things socially. And I also think I got better at competing with time because I felt like at the beginning, like,
Michael wasn't in the game anymore. So I think finally could actually win a competition.
Right. Well, I did win a comp when Michael was there, right? So, I would like to take some props for that. But at the same time, yeah, it was tough to beat Michael in any damn thing.
Mm-hmm. So, have you talked to Taylor since? Y'all are both at Todrick's, so I guess hello. Y'all have to still like coexist. But I guess how have things been going since with her getting off the show and she is watching the show and seeing all this back, and y'all did get very close towards the end of the season. So I'm sure she feels blindsided by a lot of things. How have the conversations been going between y'all?
Yeah. Well, I'd say that there's probably been not as many one-on-one conversations just because there's been so much, especially on her plate. I mean, my God, she's like been presented with every opportunity to hop into a podcast, shows, PR stuff, and rightfully so. I mean, she's a superstar. She deserves that treatment, and people want to hear from her. So just trying to get 15 minutes with her at this point has been difficult within itself. But we did catch one time where we were able to just talk one-on-one, and the way that I approached the conversation was just like, look, I haven't looked into whatever has been said or whatever I've said or done throughout the season, because that's just my process for my mental health, and I hope people can respect that. But she has, because I think a lot of the things that she's seeing on social media haven't been negative in what she has done, perhaps, right? So it's maybe just a little bit more of a positive environment for her to walk into. But she's seen.
Well, I don't know if watching clips back of people talking
yeah.
crap about you is a positive environment to walk into.
Well, that's fair. That's fair, Kat.
I mean,
yeah.
there's like one thing about like you have to deal with like, you know, the trolls and the hate, which like that's one thing, but it's all like people behind a computer. Right, and me, right. I'm kidding. But then, she's dealing with people that actually like she knows and right. like had relationships with that they were the ones talking bad. You know, right. That's tough.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. And I definitely respect that can have a different emotional impact for her. But she's been venturing into that more is all the point that I'm trying to make, whereas I have not. So, I talked to her and just said, hey, like, what have you seen? Is there anything that, you'd want to talk to me about that you've seen that I maybe have not seen or I have? And I can tell you what I was thinking at that point. Of course, if I crossed any lines, like I apologize for those things. And we got through like maybe the majority of the season. We still have to talk through like more, especially during that last week. But yeah, that was a conversation, and I think it was very healthy. But again, it just got cut off short because we both had to run somewhere, and it was just like another thing that we had to do. So yeah, it's been tough to get some one-on-one time, but we have had at least a conversation around things specifically from this year.
Yeah. I mean, I always feel silly whenever, not silly, but I always feel like some type of way whenever I like talk about this, because I'm a white girl. So I know that it's like, you're probably like, what is this girl talking about? I just, from the live feeds, from what I've seen, I feel like if I was in Taylor's shoes, I would be very hurt by the way that you kind of used culture to target her in the first week. And then also weaponized her as not a strong Black woman. I would maybe start there whenever you start your self-reflection. And I think that that's a lot of what, people watching the live feeds and, kind of what they want to see as well. I don't know. I feel like I'm probably giving you unsolicited advice, but like whenever I was on the feeds, again, I was like a total bitch. Like, talked so much shit. And I just remember there's like two ways of taking it. There's like the way that you can take it where you can just like not look at anything and not talk about anything. And it's almost like it's not there. You don't log into Twitter, who cares, But it's also like Big Brother gives you a really unique opportunity to be faced with like the worst side of yourself. And, I don't know, my 2 cents.
Yeah. No,
my conspiracies, if you will.
Yeah.
But neither here nor there. So I guess looking back on the game, I know that in your final 2 speech and you were talking about your biggest move, and Tressie, I actually thought that Turner played a great game. So I was right there with you on agreeing that evicting him was a good move. Yeah. However, now knowing what you know now and where the jury was leaning, do you still think that evicting Turner was the biggest move that you made in the game?
Well, I think after hearing a lot of the jury members' perspective, I think they viewed the biggest move in the game was me winning that veto against Michael and using the power of veto, and that I could take more ownership over that, right? Whereas I thought that, I guess while I was in the house, I thought that it could be debatable on who could take the most credit for it between Turner and myself, since it was his HOH. He was the one who had to say the words to put Michael up, as opposed to me just using the power of veto. But so yeah, I was a little bit conflicted about that. But even if I was conflicted about that, I thought that Turner evicting him in the final 3 and taking Taylor to final 2 was sort of the stamp on, okay, Monte's willing to make big moves, right? Under his HOH, under his, sort of domain. So that's what I felt at that moment. Do I look back and regret it? No, because I didn't have any information to make me think otherwise. Of course, if I know what I know now and I wanted to win, yeah, then I would have maybe done things differently. But in the moment, that's the best that I had, Kat.
Do you think that there's anything that you could have said, or any, like, even if you stood up there and were like, that was the biggest move I made? And is there anything that you could have said that would have swayed the jury in your favor to win?
I gotta be careful with the way I answer this.
No, Monte, no. See,
no, I do.
Now you're going right back to where I would say things differently if I wasn't on TV. No, we don't want that. We want the real, the raw, like your real, how you feel.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate it. I don't know. I don't know if that would have made any difference. I'll just leave it at that, because I don't really.
What do you know? Tell us what you're thinking.
Like
and
those.
you walked right
those
into that because I warned you in the beginning about people being like, he's holding back because he's on TV. We're not on TV. We're just on the Conspire Away Bitches podcast.
Right. No, it's still a platform. But no, I think for me, it was just like, I think that there were conversations in that roundtable in jury. I still haven't watched yet. And I think that there were a lot of things talked about going into that vote. Like, I just would like people to maybe deduce how, Turner was the only one who voted for me and he wasn't in the jury house, right? So in his mind, he was assuming the same thing as me, that everybody would probably be voting along the lines, of voting me for to win the season. So I don't know if there was anything I could have said any differently, maybe, but that's all that I had. That was the best that I could do to prepare. So if it wasn't that, then, then I'm trying to be something else.
Okay, I just remembered this, by the way, speaking of like final two and all that. You were so mad about Taylor having a finale outfit. Why were you so mad about that? Because you're like locked in a house, so everyone has a finale outfit.
Yeah. I don't think it was about her having one. I think what the consensus was, and this was something that like people had talked to me about, and I don't even remember it happening. I think I remember walking to like the ledge and seeing her walk out with the outfit. But I think at that time, I think everybody was saying like, yo, like it just felt like a little bit, from what I remember, like almost as if like you're solidifying and telling people you're like, yeah, I'm definitely making it to finale, and almost like in a braggadocious way, like that's what it felt in the moment. I initially did not care about it, but then the more people said about it, no, I really didn't.
Like you cared the most.
Really, again, Kat, like I haven't watched all of that week, so if you're telling me this and you've seen it, then that's one thing. But I think a lot of like what people had said, and especially I think I remember talking to like some of the guys in the house, and they were saying like, yo, the girls felt some sort of way about it. But then come to find out, I think the girls actually told her to do that or something, like, which is just, again, it makes me feel like an idiot because like I'm getting told information that is just conflicting with what the reality is. So
and then to put salt in the wound, then you took her to final two while she wore that outfit and she beat you.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's poetic justice, I guess. I don't know.
Full circle, man. Well, I wish that we had more time, but we are out of time. But thank you again for coming on the podcast. Sorry to bother you.
Sorry to bother me. No,
I'm just kidding. Just because of what you said, and I'm running with that because I'm dramatic. But I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk about your game and answer some questions that a lot of the fans have been wondering. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me and having this conversation. So hope all is well with you.
All right, you too. Conspire away, bitches.
All right, see ya.